Hello, my friends. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Katie Taylor. I am a certified child life specialist. And today I have the complete honor to share with you one of the most beautiful conversations I've ever had with someone who is a light to the field of child life, to the field of parenting, to the field of social work, of chaplains, of therapists, and beyond. Patrice Karst is a children's book author, but for so many of us, she gave us a tool to give as a gift to families to describe the pain and fear and beauty that can come with being separated from someone we love. So I cannot wait to share my conversation with Patrice. I don't know. I had to grab tissues, but in full transparency, I don't know if you will, but it was meeting one of your idols. And it was very emotional for me. I cannot wait to share this conversation. I hope you enjoy. Happy Child Life Month, my friends. I am so happy and excited to be with you. It is the first week of Child Life Month, which is the month of March. And traditionally, if you're a child life specialist, we spend the whole month making sure that others know what our job is. But here at Child Life on Call, we want you to know how grateful we are that you show up to work every day. Parents, that you ask questions with this Child Life community, that you find benefits from the tips and suggestions that we put out there on social media. So this is just a big hug from me here at Child Life on Call to you to say Happy Child Life Month. And we wanted to give back to all of you who listen to the Child Life on Call podcast. We know you're child life specialists, parents, and child life students. So I'm so excited to tell you that if you are a child life specialist who has been wanting to join the Child Life Circle, you have been wanting to find a place online where you can connect with other child life specialists, get PDUs that are not crazy expensive, get access to virtual clinical supervision, you can do all of that for just $19.99 a month. I know it sounds very inexpensive, too good to be true, but I promise it is not. Just during the month of March, sign up with no strings attached for free for 7 days. Come try out the circle, see what you think. We would love to meet you there. Parents, we haven't forgot about you either. Last year, we launched our How to Prepare, Support, and Respond to Your Child During SHOTS course. The feedback we got from parents was incredible. They felt empowered. They initially had tools as soon as they left the course to go support their child and advocate for them. And we want you to have that course. We are having it available during the month of March for 50% off. So if you go to childlifeoncall.com/shots, and when you type in the coupon code March, 50% off, no questions asked, but make sure you get it because this deal and this course will not last forever. And lastly, Child Life students, if you're listening, we have partnered with some of the best mentors in the field, your Child Life coach, your Child Life guide, AJ and Lauren. And if you come get a Child Life student service through us and you type in the coupon code March, then you get 10% off any of your services this month. So come join us. We would love to have you there. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Child Life on Call. This podcast is a safe place for parents to share their stories about what it's like to have a child that has a medical experience, diagnosis, disease, and or everything in between. We know there's power in sharing stories, and that power multiplies when you can listen to other parents who have walked a similar path to yours. Giving and getting advice is great, but hearing how another parent navigates the complexities and nuances of healthcare is even better. As a child life specialist, my role is to support, validate, and provide emotionally safe spaces for kids and their families, and I am so honored to be on this journey with you. In addition to parent stories, we sprinkle in some expert episodes every now and again that have content for both parents and professionals in the field of healthcare, all with the mission to empower parents to be confident advocates and partners with the care team during healthcare experiences. We're so glad you're here. Patrice, I'm so excited to be looking at you and getting to see you face to face, really the person behind, for me, the foundation of any bereavement work I do with families, and has transitioned to working with military families or children of adult patients. Your work is so important to so many. Would you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you, where you're from, and just let us to know a little bit about you, Patrice?
Oh, that's a dangerous thing. I'll go on for a long time about me, but I'll try to keep it concise. And thank you so much for inviting me on your show today. And I'm honored. I'm always honored to meet my readers, especially the therapists and the child life specialists and, well, everybody. I mean, it's amazing the reach of the book and how many incredible people are using it for so many different things. But yeah, I'm Patrice Karst, and I'm most known for having written The Invisible String, which was a book that I wrote many, many years ago. I think it was very first came out in the year 2000, and I wrote it because I was a single mom, working full time, and my son was very upset whenever I would bring him to school and he would cry, and then I would cry on the way to work, and it was just tough. So one morning, I just told him what was obvious to me, which is that we were connected by an invisible string, and that if he missed me, he just needed to tug on it, and then I would tug it back and he'd feel it. And until we saw each other at the end of the day. And the long story short is it shifted his separation anxiety. Like that was it. Once he got that concept that we were connected by a string all day, that was the end for him of feeling separate from me. And then all his friends wanted to hear about it, and I knew I had something special. So I'm making this way too long, but basically I wrote it as a children's story. I would have been thrilled if it had, gotten published and sold 500 copies, but it has literally had a life and an energy and a grace all its own. And we are now close to 2 million copies in print, sold in 21 different foreign language translations around the world. It led into a whole series of other children's books that I've written, some in the Invisible series and others. Yeah, my life has definitely changed. And I had started in the spiritual self-help world. I fell into the children's world, really. So anyway, that's me. And I live in Ventura with my little blue-eyed wiener dog named Luna. And my son is now 32 and lives, about a mile away. So that's pretty awesome. And yeah, and we go and have sushi a lot. So
I love it. How old was you're going to make me do math here. So 32. How old was he when you explained the concept of the invisible string to him?
From my recollection, because you don't expect that it's going to become such a pivotal moment in, you have no idea the book was ever going to even be published, let alone go this far. But he was probably 5, and right around there. But what's happened with the book, which is so remarkable, is it's not, even though it is the number one book for children dealing with death and dying, loss and separation anxiety, but it's also used for celebrations of love. Like Valentine's Day is our busiest. That's when we sell more books than any other time. And, then adults buy it for each other. It's kind of transcended just being a children's book as much as a message about love, that even adults, adult children for their adult parents and vice versa, spouses for each other. It's just a way of saying, I love you. And somehow that tangible explanation for the very abstract concept of what connection and love really is, just it's so simple, right? It's not like, it's rocket science to write The Invisible String. I just wrote what was in my heart, which is what I've always believed, which, that we are all connected and that love is forever and transcends time and space. So I'm going to shut up now. See,
No, not
told you it's
oh
dangerous. You
gosh.
just say, tell us about yourself. I'm just going to keep going.
This is what I want, and this is what the listeners want to hear. It's one of those books that when you read it for the first time, it feels familiar before you've even gotten to the next page. It's not that I knew the words that you were going to write. It's just that it made so much sense for what my heart felt. And I think that's what that you explain. And as a child life specialist, we may use it a lot in terms of separation and grief and bereavement. But it's also that resource that we give to families or recommend that they're not going to walk away feeling worse after they read it, or more sad,
Right.
or scared. It just provides so much comfort. And I think it's just such a beautiful combination of the words and also the illustrations and how they work together.
Well, and thank you so much for what you feel, what your experience was reading The Invisible String. I've never heard it quite explained like that before, that you could almost feel like the innate truthness, if you will, in what is being said. Well, it's spiritual truth, it is string theory. It's the most real thing there is that we are all connected and that love is the most powerful force in the universe. So I think I just tapped into something that was so universal and needed. It was the right message at the right time. And it was, it's in the book world, books that stay on the shelves year after year after year after year, they're either called classics or evergreens, something that just, it's never going to go out of, because it's just, anyway, it's been a miracle. It's been a journey, not just therapists, but I mean, the military system and the prison system and hospices and hospitals and divorce lawyers, sending the books to their clients. And, just like, I can't even, there's no place really where the invisible string hasn't been in some way used. It's just, foster groups, adoption groups, going away presents. I had a beautiful, every letter I get, and I get a lot of letters, and I made a promise to myself many, many years when I first published my very first book, which was a spiritual book called God Made Easy. And I said, if anyone ever writes to me, I'm going to write them back a personal letter, because for someone to take their time to write an author, to take time out of their busy lives to bother to write an author, that they were moved in some way that is worthy of being responded back to personally. And I think that that's why I've had so many amazing, the trajectory of the book, with basically no advertising, no publicity, no huge marketing budget. It was first published with a very small publisher. We weren't even in the Borders and Barnes and Nobles of the world. It was a true word of mouth book. But I have kept that promise, and I have written back every single person that has ever written to me. I just write a lot more letters today than I did back then. But I feel like I've got all these love ambassadors out there, because when I write them back, we share, and people are sharing some very intimate stories with me. You might only imagine the things that I don't think anyone could. I could publish some of the letters without the names, and the letters would blow people's minds. There's been children, it's kind of sad. So I don't know but there have been children that literally had passed away, and in the casket, they buried a copy of The Invisible String. I can't even, the letters are so mind blowing, and they're not always sad, although there are a lot of sad letters. Death happens every single day, and I shouldn't laugh about that. It's not laughing. It's like a nervous reaction, because it's almost like I never expected to be in the death business, to be in the grief, bereavement. But so many of the letters I get are from parents or grandparents or loved ones, siblings, just telling me how the book has helped their families in different ways. But I also get all kinds of other letters too. And what I had started this whole little, story about the letters is that I had, as an example, just some of the sweetest things you've ever heard. Like, mom wrote to me and told me that her 18-year-old only son was off to college, and she had just walked in the house watching him drive away, and she was just, bereft, and just, oh my God, there he goes. Like, that's it. I'm going to start crying as I tell the story. She goes over to her computer, and he had left a piece of string and a note, and, never forget mama, and like, it's become almost a cultural thing. The string, people look at each other and kind of do a motion like they're pulling a string to, it's just, I never would have dreamt. And anyway, so yeah, I'm thrilled. And the way it comforted my son, and the fact that now it's helping children and families all over the world dealing with really hard stuff. And sometimes, not that hard stuff, but just being alive and realizing that they're connected. When, their next door neighbor moves away and they're going to miss them, they now know they're still connected. There's just a sweetness about realizing that love is not a fickle thing, and that it's real and strong and matters. Yeah.
What is resonating with me is how you didn't write this book to sell 2 million copies. You wrote this book because it was what's in your heart.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of child life specialists and parents who have gone through difficult things who often feel compelled to author or create a children's book or children's literature to help explain complex topics. And I think they can really look to you for navigating that path, not in terms of like what is the value added, but what is in your heart and how does it resonate with people? What are some of the cool or very surreal opportunities that you've had as a result of publishing The Invisible String?
Oh, yeah. I mean, go still to this day, my favorite thing is going into a school and actually getting a chance to, in lifetime, not just on Zoom, but being with kids and watching, literally as I read my story to them, watching the light bulbs go off in their head and the light in their hearts. And inevitably, more so then than now because of COVID, but kids still run to me and want to hug me after I tell this story because something has so that, and because I tell all this story about how it was for my son and, and then read to them. And then we do question and answers about where does your string go? Or they ask me questions or, and you can't even, it's so beautiful watching them and sharing about what their invisible strings mean to them. It's truly incredible. So I would say that. And obviously, the thrill of seeing your book in bookstores and the letters that you get and the mentions and the articles and I have Google alerts set up on my computer. So if there's ever a mention of Patrice Karst and the Invisible String, it'll show up. It has to be a pretty big mention, otherwise, in order, I guess, for Google to catch it. But, wake up in the morning and just check that out and just see, oh, wow. And, Serbia, my book is the global effect of the whole thing has been just so, I get letters from, emails from all over the world. And it's just truly, it blows my mind how we may have, 21 foreign language translations of The Invisible String now, but the language of love is the same. The book translates, it's the same message. So it's really, really remarkable. You can't really mess up that message. It doesn't get lost in translation. It's just love. And, all the books that have sprung up as a result of it, The Invisible Leash is now quickly becoming one of the number one pet loss grief books for children. And again, transcending adults. There's just, I don't know if do you know about the Invisible String backpack? That's my latest one.
I do not.
Yeah, well, okay, so there's in order of how it all went down, there's the Invisible String, obviously. There's the Invisible String workbook, which is done by Dr. Dana Weiss, who's my incredible partner on that workbook, who is a play therapist and PhD and does lots of child life type trainings all over the country. She's amazing. So we did the Invisible String workbook, which helps children take the message of the invisible string, the messages of the invisible string, even deeper and even further with all kinds of activities and creative activities for them to do, puzzles. And Dana basically did the most amazing job creating most of the exercises. But anyway, then there is the Invisible Web, which is the book that explains how really we live in a web of love, because if your strings intersect with mine and mine intersect with his and then his brother and his uncle and his next door neighbor and his best friend, and we soon realize we live in a web of love. So that's the Invisible Web. Then I did a baby book, a toddler book called You Are Never Alone, an Invisible String Lullaby, and that's a board book. I feel like I'm losing track of something. Oh, the Invisible String Backpack is my latest invisible book. And that's about a little girl who discovers on her first day of school, when she's very jittery and not feeling very good, very scared, and it's just so much at one time. And she finds out from her brother that she has this invisible backpack that first starts with the invisible string. It's connected to her by the invisible string, and to her mom and dad, who she's going to miss inevitably. She's scared to death. I want them to come pick me up. What if no one can hear me? What if I'm too scared to, speak up in class? What if I can't find my room? What if everyone laughs at me? Many fears.
Right.
And she discovers she's got this invisible backpack that she can reach in and find the perfect tool for any situation she finds herself in. So when she's scared that her voice is going to be too little, there's an invisible microphone for her to speak into that will help her voice project. And when the scariness of the hallways and all those kids all over the place, it feels too scary, she's got an invisible sword and she's cutting through the imaginary. I'm skipping all over the place, but she's in the yard and she's feeling really scared to go approach the kids on the swing, and she has an invisible sword and she cuts through the brush anyway, all kinds of magical tools. And then she discovers the art teacher wants her to fly into their imaginations, children, fly. And she's scared to death to go flying into the unknown of her imagination. What if she falls? What if it hurts? What does that even mean? And the next thing you know, she's discovered in her backpack invisible wings. So she goes off flying and creating. Wow. Anyway, it's a beautiful story. And then I also wrote a book called Ruby and Lonely, which is not part of the Invisible series, but that also came out last year. And Ruby and Lonely is about a little girl who suffers with loneliness, as I did as a little girl, as a child. I had a very hard childhood. And she discovers her own inner best friend by seeing her in the mirror one day and giving her a name. It's a really important book to me. And, it takes a while for books to begin to catch on. And I really hope Ruby and Lonely does, because it's a subject that we don't really talk about enough. Loneliness,
So much of what you're described just makes us as humanity so connected in so many ways. Like, you're describing the web, and to me, it went like 6 degrees of separation. But I hate that separation is in that description, right? It should be 6 degrees of connectedness.
Connection. Yeah, exactly.
And, pulling out different tools from your backpack. And as child life specialists, we often have a bag of our own coping tools that we use for kids, whether it's a birthday cake with a candle and taking deep breaths and blowing it out, and just all of these beautiful things. And one of my questions, and you were, I think, just starting to get to it, is what is your process for writing, and how has it changed since writing The Invisible String?
Well, some things have changed, some things haven't changed. What has not changed is that I only write about things that are important to me, that I feel passionate about. Because the act of writing in and of itself, I'm not like those writers that loves writing, that would like nothing more than 5 or 6 or 8 hours a day of just writing. It doesn't work that way for me. I love it when I'm in it, when the muse is taking me and I'm on the ride, and how that all works. But so that hasn't changed. I have to write in order for me to sit down, butt in chair and start creating. Something has to have really moved me inside, saying, let's go do this, Patrice. What I guess has changed is now I have deadlines. I have, when I wrote The Invisible String, I didn't even know if I was going to ever publish it. And now, it's a wildly unusual thing to try to explain how to have your dream come true as an artist of some sort, and actually be, earning a living doing that creative thing that you didn't even know if you had it, would anyone even like it? All that stuff. It's a remarkable thing, but it also brings with it, I used to write just for the love of writing too, like I really did have a love for it. And I would sit in cafes and I would write, just, do morning pages from, The Artist's Way, and just to write. And I think in some ways, when you have people actually relying on you, I have publishing company and publicist and agent and the illustrator and the sales team and the marketing team, and the whole company has invested in my book that I now have to hope is going to
do
well,
Pressure.
So yeah, it's a mixed bag, but I'll take it. I am not complaining in any. I mean, this is a thrill, and for me, obviously, because love is my whole. Well, I've suffered depression. I suffer depression sometimes. I've had a hard life. I've had PTSD. It has not been an easy incarnation for me, and so for me to have been able to somehow take my own sufferings and reverse engineer, like in some ways, what could I have had that children's book when I was growing up? How might that have changed how I understood things? I have a book coming out next year, 2025, called, with the same publisher as the Invisible String series, but it's not an Invisible String book, but it's called How Jackson Found His Joy Again. And it is about a little boy who's, got a lot of sadness, and he lost his colors. He became very gray, and he used to be a colorful boy. And how one by one, through a wonderful school counselor who tells him to go out in nature and start paying attention to the colors, one by one, his colors start to come back to him until he's, the kaleidoscopic rainbow that he, that he used to be. And, so, and that metaphor, right? So the invisible string was a metaphor for love and connection. In this book, colors are the metaphor for joy, and grayness is the metaphor for sadness. So, I guess I don't know. I guess I write books not just for the children out there, but for the inner child in all of us, and for myself. Clearly, I think there's definitely a part of ourselves, of our own inner child, when we write a children's book, but that's just my theory. But yeah.
Yeah, your words have a way of making people feel seen. And it's not just one experience, but all of the experiences. So it's like the invisible string can be about so many things within your present life. It sounds like Ruby and Lonely, right? Looking in a mirror and feeling lonely. We've all had that feeling. It's the reason we started this podcast. And so parents feel less isolated by their experience of having a child who's sick. And I can't wait to read all of them, all of the new ones that are coming out. And child life specialists we will always go to bat for Patrice Karst and anything that you publish. So, and parents who read your words too. So if there's anything that we can do to continue to lift your voice and elevate what you create, what's the best way that we can do that? We'll continue sharing the invisible string. We'll share this podcast. We'll recommend your books, but what other ways can we continue to support you?
Gosh, I've never been asked that question before. Just what you're doing, if it wasn't for the child life specialists and the educators and the teachers and the therapists and I think you guys have been the ones that shot the invisible string into the stratosphere, just because it obviously worked for you with your clients. There was some kind of little magic that children were able to understand the message, and therapists, were able to, get them to have that light bulb moment that we spoke about. So what could you do to support me? Yeah. Learn about, share my books, tell people about the books that they may not know about in the Invisible String series, and Ruby and Lonely, and The Smile. I have another book called The Smile That Went Around the World, about a little boy that does an act of kindness, and his kindness travels the world and comes back to him. And those are the more lesser known books. But and you know what I didn't tell you, but it's not about supporting me. Yeah, you could support me by holding good intention, because I wrote a memoir, which I'm now editing, because I've had quite an unusual life. So I'm hoping that I will also be able to publish that book, because it really does tell the story of, this, little girl who suffered a lot of abuse in England, London, England, how she ends up, the spiritual journey of my life, the rough and tumble wild ride it's been, and ultimately ending up having written this, hugely successful book about love that goes all over the world, and all that happened along the way. So it's an interesting romp. And just keep spreading the love, because, you're spreading the string, you're spreading the love. And then I'm connected to you all now too. So whether y'all like it or not, we're all connected by our own invisible strings.
I think we feel that because as we preview books to recommend, like it's not something we take lightly, right? Because what we recommend, in a clinical setting is really, it has a lot of stake to families. So when we read books like yours, it is just, it's that moment of resonating with us, but also that light bulb moment with our families. And so when I, got brave enough to send you an instant message or DM on Instagram, and you replied back as you promised you do, right? You respond and you said yes. And I mentioned that we're going to talk to you. People are interested in who you are, Patrice. So I imagine that your biography will do incredibly well, and can't wait to read it.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I've got a lot to say. And it's a good thing I found some vessel, some vehicle to be able to express it because, and I think we all do. I think we all have our own story. Maybe we're not meant to write our story. Maybe we paint our story. Maybe we dance our story. Maybe we, do service, and that's part of our story. But we all have different gifts that we came here with and for. And these are tough times on the planet, and love is the glue. I mean, that to me is what is so amazing, is that despite all the horrors in the world that we are now see in lifetime constantly, we just one scroll of our finger on a news feed, right? Just boom, there we are. But it just makes me thrilled. Just so you know, this has been a great week, right? Because The Invisible String has been on the USA Today bestseller list, the Publisher's Weekly bestseller list. And overnight, I woke up to the milestone of over 20,000 reviews on Amazon, which is, I remember when I was like, God, I hope I get some reviews.
Yes, congratulations.
So thank you. Thank you so much. And, just I forget what I was saying now, but...
No, you were just kind of reminiscing and talking about the process. And I was having the thought of, your message of love. And so just hear me out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you go ahead. No, I remember my thing. I'll just finish real quick. That love is just, it's alive and well, despite all the,
all of the things
stuff
that you're saying. And
love is stronger than ever.
I'm no military expert, but I think that if we brought the Invisible String book and some of your others to the front lines of war instead of guns, I wonder what it could do.
Yeah.
Right?
Interesting. Because in my letter to the reader on The Invisible String, I think I say something to that extent. Like, I just wish world leaders would read the book, just like cut it out already, So we're in this thing together, but, things take a while. Maybe with this generation, right? If they're all learning about their invisible strings and how we're all connected, and then their kids and their kid, it's just going to take a bit, but we're getting there.
Well, it's beautiful work, and I'm so grateful for your time today. Congratulations on all your success that you absolutely deserve. And I can't wait to share our conversation.
Thank you so much, Katie, for having me.
Thank you all so much for listening to Child Life on Call. If you head to our website, childlifeoncall.com, you're going to find all sorts of stuff there for parents, professionals, healthcare providers, child life specialists, no matter who you are. Actually, when you just go to our homepage, it'll help you direct to exactly where you need to go. On that, you'll find opportunities and PDUs for child life specialists. Parents, we've got a starter kit for you. And clinicians, we even have a clinician course, which teaches you how to be a confident and capable caregiver in pediatrics. We're so grateful that you're here. Please DM us on Instagram. And like I mentioned, when you rate and review this podcast, it helps other families be able to find us. So let's keep doing that. And I will see you again here next week.